Imagine being 3 seasons deep into a hit crime drama, only to realize one of the most promising characters is stuck telling the exact same story over and over again. That's exactly what's happening with Tyson in Tulsa King Season 3, and honestly, it's starting to get frustrating. Tyson has been one of the most important secondary characters since the very beginning. He's Dwight's driver, his apprentice, and in many ways his protégé, the young man who represents everything Dwight could influence in the next generation. But instead of evolving, Tyson's story is spinning in circles, trapped between his ambition to be a gangster and his parents' constant disappointment. 3 seasons in, it feels like we've watched the same father-son conflict on repeat, and fans are starting to wonder if the writers even know where they want this arc to go. Let's rewind a little. Tyson's journey started off with so much promise. In Season 1, he was introduced as this young kid who didn't want to live a normal life. He didn't want to follow the path of his parents, Mark and Angie, who represented stability, hard work, and the blue-collar lifestyle. Instead, Tyson wanted to run with Dwight, because Dwight symbolized everything glamorous, dangerous, and larger than life. Tyson wasn't content with plumbing jobs or an honest paycheck. He wanted the luxuries that came with being a gangster. But that dream immediately created conflict with his father, who disapproved so strongly that he literally kicked his own son out of the house. That was powerful television, because it gave Tyson real stakes. It wasn't just about riding around with Dwight. It was about choosing between family and the outlaw life. Then came Season 2, which should have been the natural evolution of that setup. Tyson and Mark tried to patch things up, but it all came crashing down when Jackie Ming's men targeted Tyson with a car bomb. Instead of Tyson being killed, it was his father who almost lost his life in that explosion. Now, this was the perfect narrative turning point. A near-death experience like that should have forced Mark and Tyson to confront the reality of the choices Tyson was making. It should have either ended their relationship for good or forced Mark to give his son an ultimatum: choose Dwight or choose your family. But Tulsa King completely dropped the ball. Instead of using this as a catalyst for change, the storyline just reset itself back to square one. By the time we rolled into Season 3, Mark and Angie were still repeating the same lines. They don't recognize their son anymore. They hate that he's a gangster, but they're not cutting him off. Tyson still wants to have both worlds, the family life and the gangster life. And nothing has changed. And here's the thing. Storytelling repetition only works if it builds to something. But with Tyson, it feels like we've been stuck in a holding pattern for 3 years. His father's disapproval hasn't escalated, his mother's opinion hasn't evolved, and Tyson himself hasn't truly been forced to make a choice. It's just the same conversation recycled. Son, I don't recognize you anymore. Dad, I'm doing what I have to do. This isn't you, Tyson. Over and over again. At this point, it feels less like meaningful drama and more like filler that the writers don't know how to resolve. Season 3, Episode 2 is the perfect example of this stagnation. Tyson goes to his dad, Mark, asking him for help as a plumber to fix things at the distillery. Mark initially doesn't want to get involved because, again, he's disgusted by the world Tyson lives in. He even says he doesn't recognize Tyson anymore because of the cars, the clothes, the gangster lifestyle. It's the same conversation we've been watching since Season 1, almost word for word. The tension is there, sure, but we've been here before, multiple times. And instead of drawing a conclusion, the show just keeps dragging it out. But let's talk about why this is such a missed opportunity. Because the car bomb in Season 2 wasn't just a shocking moment, it should have been a game changer. Mark nearly lost his life because of Tyson's choices, and that should have drawn a permanent line in the sand. Either Mark tells Tyson that he has to walk away from Dwight forever, or Mark cuts him out of the family completely. On Tyson's side, the bombing and his father's injury should have forced him to accept that he can't have it both ways. Instead, what do we get? Mark half forgives him, Angie almost forgets about the bombing entirely, and the family dynamic resets to exactly what it was before. Worse, Tyson himself goes on to kill Jackie Ming in cold blood. Another huge character shift that the writers just brushed past. Tyson is no longer just a wide-eyed kid following Dwight around. He's a murderer now, a gangster who has crossed the point of no return. But instead of acknowledging that, the show still treats him like the naive son who might someday be saved. This is where the frustration comes in. When a show repeats itself without progress, it undermines all the development that's come before. Tyson's story in Season 3 makes it feel like the car bombing didn't matter. It makes it feel like Jackie Ming's death didn't matter. All of those big dramatic beats are meaningless if we're back to square one with Mark saying, "I don't recognize you," and Tyson pretending he can balance both worlds. At this point, it makes you wonder if the writers even want Tyson's story to go anywhere, or if they're just using it to fill screen time while Dwight's larger criminal empire unfolds. Now, to be fair, there is still potential here. Season 3 has given us an opening to finally move this story forward. With Mark now reluctantly helping out at the distillery, there's a chance to evolve the father-son dynamic. This could finally be the season where Mark either accepts Tyson for who he is, or where Tyson realizes that his love for his father outweighs his hunger for the gangster lifestyle. Either way, the story needs to pick a direction, because we can't sit through another season of the same back-and-forth arguments. If Mark keeps repeating that Tyson isn't the son he raised, and Tyson keeps brushing it off, audiences are going to completely check out of this arc. The frustrating thing is that Tyson is actually one of the most important characters for the larger themes of Tulsa King. He's not just Dwight's driver, he's Dwight's legacy. He's living proof of how Dwight's choices ripple outward and corrupt the next generation. Dwight took this kid under his wing, and now Tyson has blood on his hands, expensive suits in his closet, and parents who barely recognize him. That makes him the perfect vehicle for storytelling. Tyson could show us how Dwight's influence destroys lives, or, alternatively, he could become the one person who learns from Dwight's mistakes and walks away before it's too late. Either direction would be fascinating, but the writers have to choose one, because right now, we're just watching the same fight on repeat, and it's dragging down the momentum of the show. And let's not forget, Tyson killing Jackie Ming should have been the moment he could never go back. That wasn't an impulsive act of self-defense. It was a calculated, cold-blooded kill. A normal family doesn't just welcome someone back after that. Mark and Angie treating him like he's still a misguided kid in over his head makes no sense anymore. Tyson is a full-fledged gangster now, and the show should treat him that way. Instead, it's almost like the writers are scared to commit to the darkness of his journey. They want him to be Dwight's protégé, but also the innocent kid who still has a chance at redemption. And those two versions of Tyson can't coexist forever. This is why Season 3 has to make a decision. Mark helping with the distillery cannot just be another excuse to recycle the same conversations. Something has to change. Either Mark fully embraces his son and accepts that Tyson has chosen this life, or Mark finally cuts him off, forcing Tyson to confront the consequences of his choices. Likewise, Tyson himself needs to evolve. He can't just keep drifting between wanting his parents' approval and wanting the luxuries of the gangster life. That tug of war has been stretched to its limit. It's time for him to pick a side. Because here's the truth. If Tulsa King doesn't do something new with Tyson, it's wasting one of its best storytelling opportunities. Tyson represents the generational impact of Dwight's choices, the cost of loyalty, and the temptation of easy power. He's the perfect character to explore all the ways Dwight's empire corrupts and destroys. But if he's stuck in the same storyline, then all of that potential goes nowhere. And for a show as sharp and gritty as Tulsa King, that would be a real shame. So as Season 3 continues, the hope is that the writers finally pull the trigger on Tyson's arc. Give us a definitive moment. Make Mark choose. Make Tyson choose. Force the family to deal with the reality of who Tyson has become. Because if we end this season still hearing the same "I don't recognize you anymore" conversation, then Tulsa King risks turning one of its most important character arcs into pure background noise. Tyson could be so much more. He could be the heart of Dwight's story, the cautionary tale, the one who either breaks free or falls completely. But he can't be stuck in the middle forever.